Hello and welcome to another Jujutsu Kaisen video. In this video, I want to explore two things that have a little bit of mystery to them: Binding Vows and Black Flashes. Let's start off with Binding Vows. A Binding Vow is a contract that is created using cursed energy. They can be used on oneself and with another person. These restrictions need to be agreed upon and can result in greater power or be used to achieve a certain goal. Yet breaking them seems to be a huge taboo in which has dire consequences. I mean, we haven't seen what these consequences are, but if Sukuna and Kenjaku believe that they aren't above these rules, it must be taken very seriously. We can look at a few individuals that use binding vows on themselves. The most notable and most handsome of these individuals is Nanami and his binding vow overtime. This makes it so Nanami is about 80% or 90% of his cursed energy output when he's on the clock. Anything past this time allows him to have his energy output go to 120. He can work overtime on me, if you know what I mean. I miss him so much. Back to the video. We have Miwa creating a binding vow for her to put all her power into her last katana swing, and the restriction being that she'll never be able to wield a katana again. Sadly, the attack didn't really amount to much. Now, recently in chapter 255, we found that the Sukuna used the binding vow in order to beat Gojo, the condition being that he wouldn't have to wield a hand sign in order to perform the world cutting slash. At this moment, we don't know exactly what he'd given up, but a lot of people are speculating that he gave up the 10 Shadows technique due to it already fulfilling its purpose in teaching him the world cutting slash. Then we have binding vows that have been used by many characters in the series, the binding vow being revealing one's hand. This vow allows the user to boost their cursed technique if they reveal the cursed technique to their opponent. This has happened with Nanami versus Mahito or Todo versus Hanami. Then there are binding vows that have more than one person involved. First being my favorite one, Sukuna and Yuji's binding vow. This was set up as far back as chapter 11 of the manga. Sukuna will heal Yuji's heart in exchange for him to be able to take over Yuji's body for 1 minute after staying in chain, then having Yuji forget the pact as well. Yuji refuses these conditions, and Sukuna adds on that he promises not to hurt anyone within that minute. So Yuji tries to get his revival without any conditions, and Sukuna baits him into agreeing to a condition of having the victor of a fight solidify the conditions. Yuji loses and the binding vow is made, and it isn't until chapter 212 that it finally paid off and we see the consequences of the binding vow. Others will be Mekamaru and Mahito having a binding vow that allows Mekamaru to have a functioning body and Mahito to have a mole on the inside. Kenjaku and the sorcerers of the past was able to make a deal so they will be revived during the culling game. And from my last example, Yuta and the higher ups, where Yuta had to kill Yuji in order to complete his binding vow, allowing him to bypass by not fully killing Yuji and actually killing him and then healing him right away. Now we will look at what a Black Flash is. A Black Flash is a powerful attack that happens when cursed energy is applied to an attack with such precision and timing, and also requires an insane amount of concentration. It also allows the user to use 120% of their maximum potential. This phenomenon is believed to not be able to be used on command. Not even the great Gojo can do it on command. The one that holds the record for most consecutive Black Flashes is Nanami. But we also find out that in chapter 256 that Gojo holds the record for most Black Flashes. We are also told in this chapter that Yuji will break Gojo's record in the near future. Now, to the question that I want to ask is it possible to create a binding vow in order to perform a Black Flash? With all the binding vows that we have looked at up to this point, they touch on so many topics, like cursed energy output or sacrifices in order to achieve a wanted outcome. Since Sukuna was able to create a binding vow to bypass having to create proper hand signs in order to perform the world cutting slash, is it possible to bypass the conditions that are needed to make a Black Flash happen? If so, what are the restrictions? We need to know 100% what Sukuna sacrificed in order to perform the world cutting slash without hand signs. But from our knowledge, it has to be something great like a usage of a technique. Miwa lost her ability to ever wield a katana again, so this is a really wide range of drastic sacrifices. In my opinion, since landing a Black Flash is such an incredible feat on its own, it needs a huge downside to be able to bypass the condition. So I believe it would be something drastic overall, like cursed energy or even lifespan. So let me explain my reasoning for each. For cursed energy, I would say you would have to give up your overall cursed energy reserves, and it would be a good amount. Let's say you're working with 100% of your cursed energy. If you make a binding vow to make your overall maximum output of your cursed energy to 120%, you are trying to get an extra 20% of your maximum output. So I see fitting that once you're done, only 20% of your overall cursed energy is left, and that is your restriction. I would say the 20% restriction wouldn't take place until after your fight has concluded, or if you can't fight anymore. I hate to use Miwa as an example for this, but you can sacrifice so much and still your attack or output could be little to nothing impressive. So it may not have the cracked outcome that all people can benefit from. Then you have your lifespan, which I think is not likely because it's hard to quantify that into a sacrifice. Like if you only have 10 years left compared to someone who has 30 years left to live. But I do think it could be something like a Might Guy 8 gate form or even Gone type sacrifice where they just put their entire being into that vow. So with all that information, what do I think? Is it possible to have a binding vow in order to hit a black flash? Well, I don't think it's possible to be able to bypass the 0.000001 second of timing that you need to perform a black flash. I wouldn't like this to happen either way, and my reasoning would be that it would cheapen the effect of the black flash. It is something that is so hyped when it happened and shouldn't be cheated out with the binding vow. It also takes away from the level of a user in order to land a black flash and get into the zone, as the late Nanami would say. Also, if it was possible, I would think Sukuna and Gojo would be just spamming that during their fight. So in conclusion, no. That's a big no from me, dog. Thank you for making it to the end of this video. Please let me know what you guys think about this theory. I would love to know your perspectives on this topic. And if you have any of your own theories as well, I would love to read them as well. Please only subscribe if you feel like I've earned it. And with all that being said, I've been your bestest bro, and I'll see ya when I see ya.